Yeah. This is the slightly abridged, possibly even slightly more abridged now because I've been setting up. State of the Velociraptor. So, okay, the title is in, well, one can say the credit goes to Larry and the blame goes to me for the title. Because he was talking on, I think it was one of the Perl Search channels, I don't exactly pay a huge amount of attention to them, but he says, Perl 5 is a Velociraptor. I thought that was brilliant. Then he says, what we need now is an Acceleraptor. So a bad pun that doesn't exist yet. No. Anyway, that's not the point. But the other thing about this is, the thing that first got me into understanding the idea that Perl was about more than just writing out code and knocking stuff out, that the community was out there, was the serialization on the old Perl.com, about 3 revisions back of that site, of Larry's annual State of the Onion talks. And I just thought it was fantastic, because he's talking about all this stuff, and okay, possibly those of you who've seen him give his keynote at YAPC-EU, when he's already done it about 4 times that summer. It's not been quite the scintillating and sparkling experience it is the first time at OSCON, but the talks are always brilliant, and he always had something fascinating to talk about, and the thing is, well, stuff it, somebody's got to still talk about Perl 5, right? So I'm afraid you're stuck with me. So, yes. This was much more fun when he was in the audience and I could embarrass him with it, and he actually ended up swearing halfway through because he was sick of how thick I was laying it on. It was quite beautiful, really. And then later on he goes, oh, you were giving me more credit than I'm due. I'm like, okay, 1, you're Larry. 2, I will let you say that, and I will believe it as soon as you can convince the person standing next to you. And he looks next to him and realises his wife stood there. He goes, okay, point conceded then. Anyway, thanks to everybody for turning up, because once again we have a random Perl conference. We have far more people than I was hoping to see here. It's a morning and we're programmers, and oh my god. Okay, so, first part, paleontology. Let's go back into the ancient history, right? Perl 0. Perl 0 was apparently released only to Larry's office mates, and the release date is classified, which I suspect means he's forgotten but doesn't want to admit it. Perl 1. Perl 1 was released to the world via the traditional approach of uploading it to a public FTP server and nobody noticing, and that was in 1987. Which I find slightly scary given I was 4 years old, and it wasn't actually till the following year that I started playing around with programming. Perl 2. Perl 2 added basically regular expressions, and that was in 1988. And then Perl 3, the ability to handle binary data, and then, you know, another 20 years on, we almost have some idea how to deal with Unicode. Oh god, give me 7-bit ASCII or give me death, I swear. Anyway, Unicode, invented for people billing by the hour. Anyway, 1989 Perl 3 came out, and then Perl 4. Now, Perl 4 was a fantastic release because Perl 4 contained a really essential new feature, which is that they were about to release the first Camel book, and they wanted to be able to refer to a round version number in it, so they called the next release Perl 4, which I think is quite beautiful, really. So yeah, that was 4.0, and that was in 1991. And so Perl 5 came about, and that had pretty much everything else. People went, oh, it would be a good idea. Larry went, okay, I'll nick it from Python then. People still fail to understand that the way the symbol table dispatch works is actually quite freaking similar, but that's a different one. Possibly I'll fit it into another talk later on. I don't have time today. That was 1994. So I was 11 by that point. And just discovering how much I hated high school, and how there's a certain trick that should be taught. Okay, any of you, if you have geek children, you need to teach them. There is an essential trick, right? If you swing your gate carefully and put your weight behind it, the person who's trying to trip you up gets a boot in the ankle really hard. That tends to discourage them after about the 4th time from knocking the geek over in the corridor. Anyway. So that was what I was learning the year Perl 5 was released. Oh, nice of you to join us. Come on, grab a seat. So, December 2000. I first started using Perl at an internet service provider, and I got given a 5-minute crash course in C Shell and Pico, telnet access to the main server, and told, go write some code. and basically learned from what I used to refer to at the time as the Bible in 3 parts. Fantastic set of books. I mean, people go, oh, they're a little bit outdated today. Well, yes, they're a little bit outdated, but for 10 and 15 years worth, they're not doing bloody badly. BSDI at that point, Perl 560, and there've been about 10,000 uploads to CPAN at the time. And we used DBI. Yeah. Didn't use CGI.pm, we had this lovely copy and paste block as a query string parse. I'm sure it was full of security holes. I don't even want to think about the code I wrote back in those days. And now, okay, so I was writing this talk June 2010 for YAPCNA. In my traditional state of writing conference talks at YAPCNA of not having slept the night before. It was the conference drinking, and then there was some more drinking, and then I went, hey, I've got to be awake in 4 hours, give me a coffee. Anyway, and so Perl 5.12.1 had just come out, and there's 20,000 distributions on CPAN, let alone uploads now. 130,000 uploads. We're quite possibly past the 150,000 mark while I've not been remembering to go to CPAN testers to update the slides. If Barbie was here, she'd be correcting me about now, but apparently he isn't, never mind. And in just this year, I've used God knows how many modules. This is just the stuff that I could remember off the top of my head, sleep deprived, that I knew that I was using like every month in production. And I think the difference is huge, the ecosystem and the maturity of the programming models, the difference is incredible. So, Pumpkin so far, again this is only updated to June. These are the people who have done actual sensible releases of Perl. While I was at the conference, I successfully proved it was so easy a blog could do it, although I did forget to update the contributor list. 5,000 people have uploaded distributions to CPAN. This isn't Paul's account sign-ups. This is people who actually use their account to upload stuff. And you look at the statistics for 5.12.0, released in April. And, you know, people went, hey, we've actually got a Perl major release. It's April. No, it's okay, it's the 12th. It really is a new Perl release. 750,000 lines of changes. 200 contributors by the Git patch headers. And, you know, the release process is scaling out. So 5.13, we've had a different releaser for every single point release. This is where the so easy a blonde could do it joke should have been, but evidently I already got to that. And now everybody's being reminded of tight hashes while half awake. Revenge! Right, moving on. So, Perlian ecology, part 2. Mark, I hate you for making me do this in half an hour. Anyway, CPAN in 2010. CPAN in 2010 is an amazing thing. Okay, you've got Distiller, all the cleverness you could possibly ever want building a distribution. And probably about yay much extra cleverness, but you know, this is Perl, right? We say, can we have some rope impulses? Here's a coil! And that's kind of the point. Plaque. Plaque is amazing. Plaque is finally allowing all of the different framework authors to actually share code and share the basic web stuff in such a way that we're able to focus on building the value add stuff, building the things that actually make the framework interesting, which is just a fantastic achievement. CPAN minus. CPAN minus because apparently writing a Nova Bose switch for CPAN.pm was too hard. It's still a brilliant piece of code. Anything I can grab with curl, pipe to Perl, and then just do module installations for. Wonderful thing. Things like CPAN meta, because we have the meta 2.0 specification. Now, okay, meta 2.0 spec is not going to change the lives of anybody in here, and most people in here directly. But indirectly, it's a huge thing, because it's finally sorted out the quagmire that was the meta.yml spec. Come up with a 2.0 version that has sensible keys for complex resources, so you can have, you know, anybody noticed that on search.cpan.org now, often there's a link back to the source repository for the module. That's modern meta spec stuff. The metadata in the disk being introspected by search.cpan is all sorts of little things like that that make it much easier to do really cool things with the toolchain. Meta.json, because YAML not only ain't markup language, it ain't human readable, and it appears not to be computer parsable most of the time. see also the fact that parse cpan meta is a version of YAML tiny, and then there's a module build YAML, which is another slight version of YAML tiny, and then there's xutils makemaker has one now in order to write my meta files. Because there wasn't really any other sensible way to do it when Shawnee was working on that code. Yes, wonderful. We have a billion YAML parsers and none of them quite agree. Anyway, meta.json, problem solved. Good, move on. Right, my meta. My meta is huge. My meta means that you'll finally have a sensibly machine introspectable record of the configuration environment of a distribution and which optional dependencies got pulled in for that platform and what features you selected. All of this information that normally only existed in the scroll of the cpan log is now going to be installable and sensibly introspectable. I think that's going to make for some really interesting stuff in the next year. Perl, perpetrated by the wonderful Dave Cross. Very, very small thing, but you had the old Plagger stuff, which was a huge, complex aggregator that you basically ended up with yay much YAML and wondering where your RAM had gone. And Dave Cross wrote a thing called Perlanet, which is apparently supposed to be pronounced Planet. Very good, Dave. We refactored that and subclassed it to build the Iron Man feed. And being able to take a piece of code that was nice, single purpose, did the job, break it out, refactor it, subclass it, and produce something, and just assuming all that would work, as opposed to you going, oh my god, which class builder have they used this week? It's a thing to behold. It's not that this is exciting because there's new things we can do. It's that it's exciting because suddenly a bunch of things that you used to worry about going wrong, you can just assume will be fine. And there's also been a fair amount of interesting stupidity out on C++. Perl method call with block. Yes, they actually emulated the let's do $arrow method and then a sub at the end thing from Ruby, which was done by a mad Japanese Perl hacker with a small bit of help from Devil Declare. And I don't like that syntax personally yet, but I'm really impressed that somebody figured out how to implement it as a cpan module. And I'm looking forward to people keeping on implementing things as cpan modules. And maybe for 5.16 or so, we'll start looking at getting a general syntax extension mechanism back into core. I'm still deeply disappointed that we haven't seen more stuff on your keyword hooks. But we'll see. I think the problem with that is by the time people have got the Devil Declare version working, the spiders are crawling over their heads and
the keyword plugin mechanism is very nasty interface to use. I think that would be blocked.
Yeah, is it actually worse than Devil Declare?
I have plans to replace that in 5.16. No, it's nicer than Devil Declare. It's still nasty.
Yeah, that's not much of an achievement, is it? Yeah, Devil Declare, the thing that has always had to ship with a file called stolen chunk of toke.c. Don't know. Somebody told me it couldn't be done. I think they looking back, I think they mispronounced shouldn't. Moving on. DBIX connector. DBIX connector is another example of something that I think is quite cool, which is that Just a Theory, Dave Wheeler, excellent Postgres hackers, basically took the connection logic that DBIX class uses to handle reconnects and stuff and turned it into a standalone module. So again, we've got this movement of some of the bigger projects are getting significantly splintered and different parts of them extracted so they're usable separately. So you can have the mechanism without needing to adopt the rest of the policy of the original authors. And again, I think that's really exciting because it means that we're going to end up with an ability to reuse the same low-level components across multiple frameworks, ORMs, whatever. I'm not entirely sure how one does that for templating engines. I do believe that Andy Wardley is going to be trying to explain his idea for it later, though. Try-tiny. Try-tiny is another wonderful thing, because try-catch is brilliant, but it's huge and complicated. And people are scared of Devil Declare. I wrote it and I'm sometimes scared of it. Try-tiny, on the other hand, Yuval Cogman, nothing much. Nice, simple, minuscule module that just gives you sensible try-catch semantics. It fundamentally, therefore, all the things that you always did wrong when doing an eval, Tritiny gets right for you up front, which saves so much fun. Reflex is another interesting one, which is Rocco Computer, who created Pro, is working on a more modern reflexive object-based async system, which is currently incidentally implemented on top of Perl in order to be able to reuse stuff, but it's very much its own paradigm and relies heavily on the meta protocol capabilities of Moose to be able to do all sorts of things. And I think that's potentially very interesting as well, because while any event seems to be picking up fairly substantially as this is the ultralight low-level thing, in terms of large asynchronous programs, you need a degree of structure. And I think Reflex is going to be a very interesting attempt at providing that. Perl. Okay, I am a grumpy Billjoy VI user. I am really glad we have an IDE that people don't hate. We have an IDE that people don't hate. Jesus. Awesome. Anyway. And Moose went past 1.0. And Moose is now going, I mean, it's like, I remember starting using it at 0.18 and going, right, let's try this. I've broken it. Stephen, I have very few lines of code in Moose core, but I think there's quite a lot of tests that if Stephen was a more vindictive man would include. I hate you, Matt. How the hell did you try and do this? But Moose 1.0, and we have stable, powerful object system. The last couple of releases have again seen a 15% or so speed in application startup time. We're moving to a 3-monthly release cycle. So basically you get maintenance releases along the way, and then here's a chunk of new functionality, maintenance releases along, which gives time for the people doing massive meta hackery to catch up and get all their stuff forward ported to the new version of things. So, slight diversion. How did I end up here? Well, okay, at least in part it's the fault of Hash Catalyst. Because I walked onto there and went, hello, yes, I'm going to ask some questions. And I got like 6 hours into reading the Catalyst source code and looked at the way regex dispatch was implemented and went, I think that's a bug. And then ended up submitting my first patch before I'd actually got to the point of writing my first application using it. But and then, you know, so I hung about, and a few months later they went, oh, Marcus doesn't have time anymore, we need somebody to do the repository management. Are there any volunteers? And I'm sort of sat there going, yeah, sounds like fun. Great idea that, wasn't it? And then somewhere around 5.50 I went, right, you know, I can see a good way to refactor the dispatcher, so let's have a go at that. And Sebastian went, right, that's great. Go set yourself up with a commit bit and make a branch. It's like, oh. And then in 2006, I sort of came to this question of, there's two things that I can do here. Either I can stick to the principle of, I want to try and write as much cool code as possible, or I can try and make as much exist as possible. And I decided that option number 2 was kind of more fun, or at least that somebody needed to do it, and I didn't really fancy anybody else trying to do it to me. There have been in my existence so far 2.5 people who can actually successfully manage me. Anyway, so I've ended up doing sort of cat herding, running around after people, trying to make sure installation problems get fixed, and shouting well volunteered and getting away with it a lot. And I think there's a few people here today who I may have done that to which I would apologise, except that I'm not sorry at all. And 4 years of learning, you know, I have this lovely, shining, polite, tactful personality. It's taken me some work. Anyway, and it occurs to me that there was this thing years back, which I believe was perpetrated by some London.pm people, where people had t-shirts made that said PIMB for Perl Is My Bitch, and that managed to offend the living hell out of quite a lot of people. And okay, you can sort of see why. But what I'm saying is, not only has Perl leveled up over the past few years, but the community has leveled up as well. And now we can stand here and say, rather than the whole image of people knocking out this amazing high-speed Perl code that's tailored to their own ideas, that fits as makes one programmer incredibly productive. He makes Perl his bitch, yes, that's wonderful, but the idea now is we manage to write code that we can actually share with each other and do sensible team projects and split stuff out onto CP and much more. And so I say this year it's Perl Is My Community. And I think that is a huge difference as well. The spirit of collaboration over the past few years has changed so much. I think I probably passed giving out 300 commit bits in the past 4 or 5 years. I used to give out about 2 commit bits a week. There's now people like Tom, Raffle, who didn't turn up because he's a worse. Reba Sushi's probably not managed to wake up yet. But all of these people are giving out commit bit after commit bit, week on projects, and that's the sheer momentum we're developing. CP uploads double every year. This is an amazing thing. So a lot of what I end up doing now is hanging around answering questions, helping people with design, trying to talk them into sending patches. And so one of the things that I think is an important part of this talk is, if you fancy getting involved in something but weren't quite sure where to start, come and bug me, talk to me about the stuff that you're interested in. I will find a project that you'll enjoy working on that will be happy to have you. Seriously, I've now been doing this all summer. It's taken variously somewhere between 15 minutes and a week to find the first project for people to play with, but most of them seem to be pretty happy with it. Anyway, I still don't have time. Right, paleontology. We've done a lot over the past year or so in terms of getting things out there, getting buzz together. Perl.org got redesigned. Thank you, Rengar. Iron Man is still going in spite of the fact that after summer I epically failed to start my blog again. I will do at some point. Somebody's just going to have to kick me into it, I suspect. Blogs.perl.org, which actually mostly works now thanks to the efforts of Dave Cross and a bunch of people at 6 Apart. Perl stuff keeps turning up on Reddit, and the trolls get met with rational, sensible responses. Or downloads, but that's Reddit, News.y Combinator, we actually end up with sensible Perl articles on that. The Toby Index, pile of bollocks though it might be, Perl is rising, which says that we're seeing more and more mentions of it out on the wider internet. So we are getting somewhere. And Kencho has stabilised nicely into a solid production platform and a solid answer. People go, oh, there's 12 modules on CPAN to do this. Okay, we'll go look in Kencho. If there's one in there for it, unless you've got a good reason, just use that one. And that's, if we can get that properly publicised, that's another huge step forwards. Strawberry Perl Pro. Okay, it was supposed to be Vanilla Perl, Strawberry Perl, and Chocolate Perl. And then they seem to have abandoned Vanilla Perl and Chocolate Perl, Strawberry Perl Pro. And I don't know why we let Adam Kennedy name things. However, brilliant step forwards, has the full Kencho stack in it, all of the stuff in Strawberry, comes with Burner. Mimit, in spite of them having a stupid row with Freenode, has proved incredibly useful for Perl.org, because it means that we can link straight through to IRC for module documentation. When Mimit was first launched, it was half a dozen networks, and you had to select one from the drop-down, and I emailed them and went, could we have another box, please? And they went, what? What do you use it for Perl? Oh, cool! And they added the other box to the interface, and now you could have a single link in the docs that just bounces straight through. If anybody wants to bring people straight to the IRC channel, look at the way the DBIX class pod does it. IRC.perl.org #Perl. One no longer needs to try #Metallica. You can actually have a conversation in there. It's amazing. I swung past IRC.perl.org at lunchtime one day during summer and looked at #Perl and was thinking, right, am I going to have to ban somebody again? No, a newbies walked in, asked a question, and because people were bored, they actually answered the Perl question. irc.perl.org #Perl has actually answered Perl questions this year. Must be something in the water, right? And Enlightened Perl still rolls forwards. The movement very much stronger this year than it has been ever before. The non-profit still suffering from the fact that the idea was we set up a non-profit where the paying members determined what to do, and it appears that what they want to do is give us money every year, not suggest anything, and then ask why nobody suggested anything. But we're still getting the money, and the money's been used for things like Send a Newbie and will help see conferences and things. And Karen Pauly, I do not know how people talked her into this, but she took over as Perl Foundation president. And Karen Pauly is wonderful. She has more JFDI than everybody else I've met from the Perl Foundation put together. So I'm hoping to see a lot of cool movement there over the next year or so. And the Perl staff movement, getting people out to non-Perl conferences to talk about stuff. That's a fantastic thing as well. And I've only got 5 minutes left, so we're going to go through the last section even faster! Early oncology, yeah, current and future core stuff. Well, okay, 5.12 had the keyword hook. As you saw, it's not kind of perfect yet, but we are starting to get extensibility into the core compiler. Package name version, wonderful thing. 5.14, oh my god, we're going to get an S// that returns the frickin' value. Just how nice is that going to be? So much ugliness in code is just going to disappear. Package with a block so that you can handle scoping the package declarations easier. A bunch of cleanup on exceptions, a huge amount of things that I haven't put into these slides, including the fact that we don't have 8 months left now. We have about 4, but that's good. That means you're going to get to play with all of this stuff sooner. I would still really like to see an operator hook, but it looks like the people are actually capable of doing it. They're going, no, Matt, I know what you'll use that for, not having it. Maybe I'll drop acid and write it in a weekend for 5.16 or something.
Plans for it.
Excellent. I shall buy you some beer and you will tell me about these plans. Anyway. And people have been trying to get Perl 5 core documentation rolling. Having it on GitHub has helped a lot with that. And I have to say, if you're trying to submit documentation to Perl 5 core and you get Warlock, come and bug me. Because in the process of doing a release, I somehow applied a commit bit. I am not competent to commit code to Perl 5 core, but I'm sure I can commit your doc improvements just so they actually get in there. So please feel free to bug me.
Matt, don't forget Unicode improvements in 5.14. Carl has done an amazing work.
Yeah, somebody else give a lightning talk about it then. Which part of earlier when I said 7-bit ASCII until I die made you think that I understand the Unicode improvement? I can just about manage to get UTF-8 in and UTF-8 out again, and pray the customer doesn't make me use MySQL and it doesn't eat the data again. But, yes, I'm sure it's wonderful. Much smarter than I am, did a lot of stuff much cooler than I understand, and apparently Unicode is going to be slightly less annoying in the next release. Excellent. Anybody who wants to know more, ask that man. He just volunteered to explain it to you. Anyway, moving on. This is not the Perl of yesteryear. And I mean, 2010 is now almost over, but look at the amount of stuff that's happened. This movement, this community, this huge explosion in CPAN uploads, this is the future of Perl. And bad luck, it's all of you lot. So, do give me a shout if you want me to try and find somewhere that you can help with. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.